Hey there, welcome. It's pretty loud and chaotic out there in the real world, isn't it? Don't worry here. It's very quiet and calm, and today I'll help you sleep with this lore video. Before we begin, if you enjoy these journeys through the lore of sleeping worlds, consider subscribing. No pressure at all. Just know that it helps these videos reach others who might need a quiet place to rest and also helps us a lot. And if you're already subscribed, thank you. It means more than you know. Now, let's settle in. Find a comfortable position. Adjust your pillow, pull your blanket a little closer, and let the tension in your shoulders begin to soften. There's nothing you need to do right now. No tasks waiting, no decisions to make. Just this moment, this voice, and the gentle unfolding of an ancient story. Close your eyes and let the heavy shroud of the waking world fall away from your shoulders, slipping down like a cloak you no longer need to carry. In this space there is no urgency, no ticking clock, and no demands upon your spirit. There is only the vast, silent library of ancient memory waiting to be opened. Tonight, we journey to a world that exists in the shadow of fire, a world of profound melancholy and breathtaking grandeur known as Lordran. But we do not approach this world as conquerors or warriors seeking to link the flame. We approach it as scholars of the quiet, as observers drifting through the fog of history. We will unravel the tapestry of this universe thread by thread, examining the texture of its existence, the philosophy of its cycles, and the tragic beauty of its inhabitants. Let your breathing deepen, matching the slow, rhythmic pulse of the primordial world we're about to enter. Imagine yourself floating in a void of perfect comfort, a space where your mind can expand and wander freely through the eons. We're going back to before the beginning, to the very foundation of existence, where the concepts of life and death had not yet been written. Take a breath, hold it gently, and release. We begin. In the time before time, the world was a place of absolute stillness, a grey landscape of unyielding stone and endless fog that stretched into infinity. This was the Age of Ancients, a period of existence defined not by what it was, but by what it lacked. There was no light to cast a shadow, no dark to hide a secret, no heat to warm the air, and no cold to bite the skin. It was a world of perfect equilibrium, a static peace that had persisted for an eternity. The landscape was dominated by the arch trees, colossal pillars of bark and stone that rose from the grey crags and disappeared into the thick, suffocating mist above. These were not trees in the way we understand them. They did not grow. They did not sway in the wind. They did not die. They were foundational pillars of the world itself, their roots knitting together the very crust of the earth. To witness this world would be to witness a painting that never changes, a sculpture carved from the raw stuff of nothingness. The silence here was not merely the absence of sound, it was a presence, a heavy physical thing that pressed against the earth, a silence so profound that it swallowed the very idea of noise. Rest in that silence for a moment. Let it settle around you. Ruling over this grey eternity were the everlasting dragons, beings of such incomprehensible majesty that they transcended the biological imperatives of life itself. They were not born, and they did not die. They simply were. Their bodies were covered in scales of stone, an armour of immortality that rendered them impervious to the ravages of time and decay. These dragons did not hunt, for there was no prey. They did not mate, for there was no need for procreation. They did not sleep, for they did not tire. They existed in a state of perpetual awareness, perched upon the branches of the arch trees like gargoyles of living rock, watching the grey fog roll over the crags for eons upon eons. They were the masters of the neutral, the guardians of the status quo, embodying a form of existence that is difficult for us, creatures of fire and blood, to truly comprehend. To be an everlasting dragon was to be one with the world, to be as permanent and unchanging as the mountains themselves. There was a peace in this, a cold, stony peace that knew no suffering, no desire, and no loss. Imagine that peace now, the absence of wanting, the absence of fear, just existence, pure and simple, stretching out forever. But the nature of existence is such that stasis cannot last forever. Even in a world of stone, there is the potential for change, buried deep within the earth. Far below the grey crags, in the deepest hollows of the world where the roots of the arch trees drank from the dark, a spark ignited. It was the first flame, a sudden intrusion of energy into a world of neutrality. With the advent of fire, the uniformity of the Age of Ancients was shattered, and the world was introduced to the concept of disparity. Heat and cold, life and death, light and dark. These were not just physical phenomena, but metaphysical truths that redefine the fabric of reality. The fire brought with it the pulse of life, the burning energy that drives all living things to grow, to strive, and ultimately to rest. It cast the first shadows, creating deep pockets of darkness where mysteries could grow. The transition was immense, a metaphysical shift that changed the foundations of the grey world forever. From the dark they came, hollow, empty vessels drawn to the warmth of the fire. These were the ancestors of gods and men, simple beings wandering the dark until they found the souls of lords within the flames. These souls were not merely sources of power. They were concepts given form, fundamental aspects of the new reality that the fire had birthed. Nito, the first of the dead, claimed a soul that embodied the inevitability of the end. He became a manifestation of death itself, a being woven from the bones of the fallen and the quiet of the grave. But his death was not cruel. It was a necessary counterpart to life, a peaceful slumber that awaits all things. The Witch of Izalith and her daughters of chaos claimed a soul of life and fire, a burning, passionate essence that allowed them to weave great warmth into the world. They represented the creative force of existence, the raw emotion and the comfort of the hearth. And Gwyn, the Lord of Sunlight, claimed the soul of light. He became the embodiment of order, of hierarchy, of the brilliant truth that the sun reveals. He gathered his faithful knights, warriors of silver who would serve as the guardians of this new age. And there was one more, often forgotten in the annals of history, but perhaps the most important of all. The furtive pygmy, a small, unassuming figure who found the dark soul. Unlike the other lords, who sought to project their power outwards, to shape the world with light and fire and death, the pygmy kept his soul close. The dark soul was unique. It was capable of division, of spreading and multiplying without losing its essence. It was the seed of humanity, the quiet, resilient darkness that resides within the chest of every human being. While Gwyn's soul was a roaring sun, the dark soul was a soft shadow, a place of rest and potential. The pygmy waited, knowing that fire eventually fades, and that when the light dims, the dark remains. This was the beginning of the great story of Lordran, the setting of the stage for events that would shape the world for thousands of years. Let that settle. Breathe slowly. We continue. With the lords empowered by the souls of fire, the stillness of the Age of Ancients came to an end. The lords looked up from the depths of the earth. their eyes bright with the light of the first flame, and they saw the grey crags, the arch trees, and the everlasting dragons who ruled over the silence. They understood that for their age of fire to truly begin, the old world of static immortality had to change. And so began the war with the dragons, a conflict that was less a battle of armies and more a shift between two ways of being. The friction between the new order of disparity and the old order of neutrality. Gwyn, the Lord of Sunlight, led the charge, standing upon the high ridges with the power of the sun in his hands. He wielded bolts of pure, concentrated lightning. These were not the erratic bolts of a summer storm, but silent, searing spears of light that struck at the very nature of the dragons. The lightning peeled apart the stone scales of the dragons, stripping away their immortality layer by layer. The scales fell like shed skin, spinning slowly in the heavy air, exposing the vulnerable flesh beneath. This was the first time the dragons had ever known the concept of vulnerability. Alongside Gwyn stood the Witch of Izalith and her daughters, weaving great waves of fire that rolled over the landscape. The grey fog was burned away, replaced by the amber glow of the flames, and the stone trees that had stood for eons began to crack and crumble. The world was being reshaped, the old grey canvas being painted over with the colours of the new age. And then came Nito, the first of the dead, bringing with him the quiet power of decay. It was a creeping, invisible force that seeped into the cracks of the dragon's exposed flesh, withering the mighty beasts from within. It was the introduction of endings to a world that had never known them. But the dragons were mighty, and they would not have fallen so easily if not for a betrayal from within their own kind. Seath the Scaleless, a dragon born without the stone scales of immortality, was an outcast among his brethren. He was a creature of envy and intellect, a being who sat apart and watched his family with longing eyes. He betrayed his own kin, sharing the secrets of their weakness with Gwyn, trading the lives of his family for a place in the new order. It is a sad tale, a being driven by the desire to be what he could never be, helping to end his own lineage for the promise of a different kind of existence. And so, the dragons fell. One by one, their great bodies returned to the dust, becoming the foundation for the new world. The Age of Ancients ended with a long fading sigh, the grey fog lifting to reveal a blue sky and a brilliant sun. The silence was replaced by the sounds of wind, of fire, of life. The world was warm, and it was alive. Rest here for a moment. Feel the warmth of that new sun on your face. The world is changing, but you are safe. With Swore One, the lords turned their eyes to the creation of a new home, a place that would serve as the heart of the Age of Fire. They chose a land high above the clouds, a place where the sun shone brightest, and there they built Lordran, the land of the ancient lords. The crown jewel of this new kingdom was Anor Londo, the city of the gods. The construction of this place was not like the building of mortal cities. It was raised by the sheer will of the lords. Great blocks of white stone rose from the earth, assembling themselves into soaring towers and majestic cathedrals that reached toward the sky. The architecture was grand and imposing, designed to reflect the power, the glory, and the order of the gods. It is a place of breathtaking height, where spires of gold and silver catch the sunlight and scatter it in 1,000 directions. Flying buttresses arch gracefully between the buildings, like the ribs of some great celestial creature. Walk with me through the streets of Anor Londo in your imagination. The streets are paved with smooth, pale stone, clean and flawless, stretching out in perfect geometric patterns. It is a city of light, where the sun hangs eternally high in the sky, bathing the architecture in a perpetual golden afternoon. There are no harsh shadows here, only the soft warm glow of the sun that touches every corner. It is a place of perfect order, perfect symmetry. Every statue, every pillar, every archway is placed with precision, a testament to Gwyn's desire for a structured, predictable world. To your left and right, massive statues of the Silver Knights stand guard. They are tall, elegant figures, their armour gleaming in the light, their weapons polished to a mirror sheen. They do not move, they do not speak. They are the silent watchers of the city, the eternal guardians of a golden dream. In the centre of the city stands the great cathedral, a mountain of stone with doors large enough to admit a giant. Inside, the air is cool and still, carrying the scent of incense and ancient stone. Shafts of sunlight stream through the high windows, illuminating dust motes that drift in the air like tiny embers. The space is vast and humbling, designed to make one feel small in the presence of the divine. Here, Gwyn ruled. The Lord of Sunlight sat upon his throne, watching over his kingdom with a stern but paternal gaze. He was surrounded by his children. Guinevere, the Princess of Sunlight, a being of immense grace and beauty who represented fertility and bounty. Gwyndolin, the Dark Sun, the youngest child who watched from the shadows, keeper of secrets and illusions, and the firstborn, the god of war who would eventually leave his heritage behind. His name has been forgotten, struck from the records, but his story remains. For a time, everything was perfect. The fire burned bright, the world was ordered, and the chaos of the ancient times was forgotten. Hold on to that image, a city of gold suspended in the sky, a place where nothing can harm you, where the walls are high and the light is warm. Let it comfort you as we continue deeper. But even the brightest flame casts a shadow, and even the greatest kingdoms have their sorrows buried beneath their foundations. Far below the golden spires of Anor Londo, deep within the earth, lay the city of Izalith. It was a place of stone and fire, the ancestral home of the Witch of Izalith and her daughters of Chaos. The witch was a being of immense power, a master of fire sorcery who had stood shoulder to shoulder with Gwyn during the war against the dragons. She had burned away the grey fog with her flames, helping to carve out the age of fire. But as the centuries passed, the first flame began to fade. The golden age was waning, and the witch, like Gwyn, grew worried. She feared the return of the dark, the end of the world she had helped to build. She looked at the dying embers of the first flame and believed that she, with her mastery of fire, could do what nature could not. She believed she could recreate the first flame itself, and so she attempted the impossible. She gathered her daughters, the daughters of Chaos, and together they descended into the deepest chambers of Izalith. They wove a great spell, pouring their souls and their magic into a catalyst, seeking to birth a new source of life that would burn forever and sustain their age. But fire is a wild thing. It cannot be tamed by will alone. The spell went wrong. Instead of a pure, orderly flame like the one that fueled the sun, they created something else, something chaotic and consuming, the bed of chaos. It was a twisted entity, a distortion of the first flame that did not bring light, but change of the wrong kind. The fire spread, consuming the city of Izalith. It melted the stone, turning the streets into rivers of molten rock and the buildings into dark, glassy ruins. The Witch of Izalith, once a noble lord, was lost to her own creation, becoming the heart of the Bed of Chaos. A figure trapped in the centre of a nightmare she had never intended. Her daughters, too, were transformed by the wild magic. Some were changed into new forms, half of what they were and half of something else, forever bound to the chaos they had helped to create. Hielag fled to the swamps above, guarding the entrance to her lost home with fierce devotion. Her sister, the Fair Lady, was blinded and weakened, taking the sickness of the land into her own body to protect those she loved. And their brother, a young boy, was transformed into something immense and sorrowful, forever watching over the memory of his fallen family. It is a story of loss, a reminder that even the most powerful beings are subject to the consequences of reaching too far. The ruins of Izalith now lie quiet, buried beneath the earth. The molten rock has cooled in places, forming great lakes of black glass that stretch as far as the eye can see. The architecture, though melted and warped, still hints at a grandeur that once rivaled Anor Londo. It is a place of heavy warmth, a lingering memory of the fire that changed everything. But even here, there is a kind of peace. The chaos has settled, the flames have dimmed, and the ruins sleep. Let them sleep, and rest here with them for a moment before we continue. Now, let us descend even deeper, away from the warmth of Izalith and into the cool, quiet dark. Far below the surface, below the roots of the arch trees, lies the domain of the dead. This is the realm of Nito, the first of the dead, a place of absolute darkness where the light of the sun has never touched. But do not be afraid. The darkness here is not threatening. It is restful. It is the deep, velvety black of a dreamless sleep, the silence of the crypt that awaits us all. Nito is the master of the catacombs and the tomb of the giants, the embodiment of death in a world where death is not an end, but a state of being. He is a massive figure, a towering cloak of shadow woven from the bones of the fallen, a collective presence of the grave. But he's not a conqueror, nor is he cruel. He is a recluse, a guardian who sleeps in his sarcophagus, surrounded by his servants. He took the soul of death and cradled it, becoming the steward of the grave, ensuring that the cycle of life and death continues as it should. The catacombs unfold before you now. They are a labyrinth of stone tunnels winding their way deep into the earth. The air is cool and dry, carrying the scent of dust and ancient parchment. The only sound is the soft rattle of bones and the distant drip of water echoing through the caverns. It is a place of silence, a place where the dead can rest in peace, undisturbed by the noise of the world above. Nito's power is the power of endings, of decay, but it is also the power of preservation. He keeps the dead safe, protecting them from the ravages of time. He is the guardian of the grave, the keeper of the final rest. In his presence there is no pain, no struggle, no ambition. There is only the quiet acceptance of the end, and in that acceptance there is peace. The skeletons that serve him are not mindless creatures, but loyal guardians. They patrol the dark tunnels, their bones clicking softly against the stone, eternal watchers ensuring that their master's sleep is undisturbed. Deeper still lies the tomb of the giants, a place of such profound darkness that even the light of a torch seems to fade. Here, the bones of ancient giants lie scattered, forming a landscape of ribs and skulls that stretches into the abyss. It is a place of hidden dangers, yes, but it is also a place of stark, quiet beauty. The darkness here is physical, a gentle weight that presses against the eyes. It is the home of those who sought the comfort of the dark. Many pilgrims ventured here long ago, seeking sacred rites and hidden knowledge. Some found what they were looking for. Others were lost to the dark. Their stories are whispers in the catacombs now, echoes of faith and determination. To enter Nito's domain is to enter a place of profound stillness. It is to leave behind the noise and the light of the living world, and to embrace the quiet of the dark. It is a place where you can let go of your burdens, where you can lay down your worries and simply rest. The darkness does not judge, it does not demand. It simply exists, a testament to the fact that everything eventually must end. And in that ending, there is peace. Rest here in the dark. It is safe. It is quiet. And when you are ready, we will continue. While the Witch of Izalith was lost to the fires of her own ambition, another story was unfolding high above the clouds in the gleaming halls of the Duke's archives. Seath the Scaleless, the dragon who'd betrayed his own kind to side with Gwyn, had been granted a dukedom and a great library as his reward. He was given a place where he could pursue his research in peace, a sanctuary of knowledge overlooking the golden city of Anor Londo. But Seath was a troubled soul, born without the stone scales of immortality that protected his brethren. He was fragile and acutely aware of his own vulnerability. This awareness drove him to obsession. He became consumed by the concept of immortality, believing that if he could understand the secrets of the crystals, the primordial stones of the world, he could fashion himself a new kind of eternal life. The Duke's archives rise before you now, a vast crystalline structure, a cathedral of knowledge perched on a cliff edge. Inside, the shelves stretch up to dizzying heights, filled with countless books, scrolls and tablets. Seath gathered every scrap of information he could find, hoarding knowledge the way his ancestors hoarded gold. He was a lonely figure, this pale dragon. He moved through the halls of his library, his mind racing with theories and equations, surrounded by his channelers, sorcerers who wore strange helms to see what he could not, aiding him in his endless research. His search came at a cost. He experimented on the living, transforming them in his quest for the essence of life. The results of his work still wander the archives, hollow reminders of his obsession, and yet he succeeded in a way. He discovered the primordial crystal, an artifact from the ancient world, and used it to grant himself a form of protection. But it was a fragile immortality, a life tied to an object that could be broken. He had traded his soul for a glass heart, becoming a prisoner of his own library, trapped in a crystal cage of his own making. The crystal cave lies hidden behind the archives. It is a place of ethereal beauty. The air is filled with the soft, chiming sound of growing crystals. The light is refracted into gentle rainbows, dancing on the walls of the cavern. Invisible pathways stretch across the void, bridges of crystal dust that shimmer faintly in the dark. It is a beautiful, haunting place, a quiet, glittering tomb for a dragon who only wanted to be like his brothers. Even the great sorcerer Logan, who came to the archive seeking Seath's wisdom, eventually lost himself in the pursuit of knowledge. The archives stand as a monument to this danger, the peril of intellect without wisdom, of knowledge without heart. But even here, in this place of obsession and loss, there is a kind of stillness. The crystals grow slowly, silently. The books gather dust, and the pale dragon sleeps in his cave, dreaming of scales he never had. Let the crystals chime softly as we move on. Their song will follow us into the next chapter of our journey. There is another kind of darkness in Lordran, a darkness that is not restful like Nito's grave, but deeper, more hungry. This is the Abyss. To understand the Abyss, we must travel to the city of New Londo. New Londo was once a thriving human city, built at the base of Anor Londo, deep within a great cavern. It was a place of culture and learning ruled by the four kings. These kings were wise and just, leaders of men who were recognized by Gwyn himself. In a gesture of trust, Gwyn granted them a fragment of his own soul, sharing his power with the leaders of humanity. It was a golden age for the city, a time of prosperity and hope. But the four kings fell. They were approached by Darkstalker Kaatha, a primordial serpent who dwelt in the shadows. He whispered to them of the power of the dark soul, of the potential that lay within humanity. He taught them the art of life drain, the ability to draw strength from others. The Abyss is not like the darkness of Nito. It is not a natural part of the cycle. It is a void, a spreading emptiness that grows without limit. It is the shadow of humanity, the dark potential that lies within every soul, unleashed without restraint. The kings embraced this power, and their city fell with them. The knights of New Londo became the dark wraiths, changed by the Abyss into something hollow and hungry. The city became a place of shadow, a breeding ground for the dark. To stop the spread of the Abyss, the sealers of New Londo made a terrible choice. They realized that the only way to contain the dark was to sacrifice the city itself. They opened the great floodgates. The water rushed in, filling the streets, the buildings, the homes. The city was drowned to save the world above. It was a sacrifice of unimaginable weight, a choice that haunts the sealers to this day. The sunken city lies beneath the water now, a silent, ghostly ruin. The buildings are dark shapes in the murky depths, their windows like closed eyes. The spirits of the inhabitants still drift through the halls, caught in memories of what was lost. It is a place of sorrow, a monument to the corrupting power of the Abyss and the terrible cost of containing it. But even here, there is a kind of quiet. The water is calm, the ruins are still. The Abyss itself sleeps, a dormant shadow waiting in the deep. The four kings still reside there, in the endless void. They are fallen lords, changed by the dark, but they are also figures of tragedy. They were men who sought to elevate their people, and found only emptiness. As we leave New Londo, let the water wash over the memory of the Abyss. Let the darkness settle. We are safe here, floating above the ruins, untouched by the shadows below. Breathe, rest, and when you are ready, we continue. In the great cathedral of Anor Londo, guarded by silent sentinels who move with the fluidity of water, hangs a massive canvas. It is a painting of a snowy landscape, a bridge stretching into the white mist, and a lonely tower standing against the cold. But this is no ordinary work of art. It is a portal, a gateway to a world that exists outside of time and space. This is the painted world of Ariamis. It was created as a sanctuary, a refuge, and a home for the things that the gods feared. It is a cold, quiet place, a world of perpetual winter where the snow falls softly and endlessly, covering the ruins in a blanket of white. Step through the canvas with me now. Feel the sudden drop in temperature. The air is crisp and clean, filling your lungs with the scent of pine and ice. The only sound is the soft crunch of fresh snow beneath your feet and the distant calling of crows. It is a stark contrast to the golden warmth of Anor Londo or the heavy heat of Izalith. Here the world is muted, dampened by the snow. Colours are soft, sounds are gentle. Everything moves slowly as if the world itself is half asleep. The painted world is a home for the unwanted, the outcasts of Lordaeron. The crow demons, with their dark wings and sorrowful cries, perch on the rooftops. Strange creatures huddle together for warmth in the courtyards. Even the undead dragon that rests on the bridge is a figure of quiet tragedy, a remnant of a bygone age, left to dream in the cold. At the heart of this world, standing on a precipice overlooking the endless white void, is crossbreed Priscilla. She's a being of striking ethereal beauty, a child of both dragons and gods, with pale fur, a gentle tail, and a scythe that gleams like moonlight. She is a living contradiction, a being who should not exist according to the laws the gods established. Because of her power, the ability to harm even the divine, she was hidden away in this painted world. But she is not a prisoner in the way you might think. She is the guardian of this sanctuary, the protector of all who have no place else to go. She speaks softly, her voice a gentle whisper in the wind. This land is peaceful, its inhabitants kind. And in a way she is right. For those who have no place in the world of fire, this cold, quiet land is a haven. It is a place where they can exist without fear, where they can live out their days in the silence of the snow. The painted world asks a question that has no easy answer. What do we do with the things that do not fit? The things that are different, or dangerous, or simply unwanted? Do we destroy them? Or do we create a place for them, a world within a world where they can be safe? Ariamis is an answer to that question. It is a mercy, a cold, distant mercy, but a mercy nonetheless. To leave this world, one must take a leap of faith. One must walk to the edge of the bridge and step into the void below. It is a strange prospect, but it is the only way to return to the reality of fire. But for now, let us stay here. Let us stand on the bridge and watch the snow fall. Let us appreciate the beauty of the cold, the silence of the white. It is a place of solitude, a place where one can be truly alone with their thoughts. And sometimes that is exactly what we need. The snow falls softly, the world is quiet. Rest here for a while. We travel now to a land lost in time, a kingdom that exists only in memory and shadow. This is Ulakyle, the land of ancient sorcery. Long before the events of the present day, Ulakyle was a place of light and magic. A kingdom where the very air hummed with arcane power. The sorcerers of Ulakyle wielded golden magic, manipulating light and sound in ways that have since been forgotten. But like New Londo, Ulakyle was touched by the abyss, and its fall was perhaps even more tragic, because it was born not of malice, but of curiosity. The people of Ulakyle were deceived by a primordial serpent, a creature who whispered in their ears of a great power buried beneath their city. He told them of the grave of a primeval human, a being from the dawn of the Age of Fire. Driven by a desire for knowledge, they disturbed this grave. They woke the sleeping beast, Manus, the father of the abyss. He was not a god, but something older, something more primal. He was a human whose humanity had grown wild, mutating into a force of corruption. When he awoke, the abyss poured out of him like a dark tide, sweeping through Ulakyle and changing the land and its people. The citizens were twisted, their minds clouded by the dark, their bodies warped into strange shapes. The stone guardians were possessed, turning against their masters. the once beautiful gardens of Ula Sila became a tangle of dark woods and twisted roots. But amidst this darkness there is a story of heroism and devotion that has echoed through the ages. The story of Artorius the Abyss Walker. Artorius was one of Gwyn's 4 knights, a warrior of unmatched skill and courage. He was known for his unbending will and his fierce loyalty to the light. When the abyss threatened to swallow Ula Sila, Artorius was sent to stop it. He ventured into the dark with his faithful companion, the great grey wolf Sif. Picture them now, a knight in silver armour and a wolf the size of a bear, standing side by side against the encroaching shadow. They fought bravely, pushing back the tide of the abyss. But the abyss was not an enemy that could be defeated with the sword alone. It was a corruption, a stain that seeped into the soul. Artorius was overwhelmed. His arm was broken, his shield shattered. In his final moments, he made a choice that would define his legacy. He used his shield to protect Sif, creating a barrier against the dark to save his friend. He gave himself to the abyss so that Sif might live. The abyss took Artorius, clouding his mind, turning him into something lost and wild. But even in that state, even consumed by the dark, some part of him remained. The part that loved his wolf, the part that fought to protect. Sif survived, and for centuries after, the great wolf guarded his master's grave, a silent sentinel honouring a fallen hero. When travellers approach that grave, Sif rises to defend it, not out of malice, but out of love, out of loyalty that transcends even death. It is a story that speaks to the power of bonds. Even in the face of absolute darkness, the connection between knight and wolf remained unbroken. Manus was eventually defeated, his rampage ended by a hero from another time. But the scar remains. The abyss is a part of the world now, a shadow that can never be fully erased. Ula Sila is gone, lost to the dark, but its memory lives on in the spells and stories that have survived. It reminds us that even the strongest can fall, and that true heroism lies not in victory, but in what we choose to protect. Let that thought settle. Breathe slowly. The dark of Ula Kiel fades behind us now, and we move toward the light. Before we ascend to the end, let us take a detour to the very bottom of the world. Far below the swamps and the poison, through the hollow of a great tree, lies Ash Lake. This is a place that time forgot, a remnant of the Age of Ancients that has survived into the Age of Fire. To reach it, one must descend through the great hollow, a spiralling path inside an ancient arch tree. The journey is long and winding, but it is worth every step. When you emerge onto the shores of Ash Lake, the world changes. The sky is a vast, dark expanse, not threatening but infinite, supported by endless pillars of arch trees that stretch into forever. The ground is covered in white sand, which is not sand at all, but the ash of countless ages, the ash of worlds that came before. The music here is different from anywhere else in Lordran. It is haunting and beautiful, a low choral chant that vibrates in your chest. It is the song of the ancient world, a hymn to the everlasting. In the distance, a great hydra floats in the water, its many heads swaying slowly. It does not threaten, it simply watches, a guardian of the deep as old as the lake itself. And at the end of the long winding sandbar sits the stone dragon. One of the last everlasting dragons, it rests in eternal silence, its stone scales grey and unmoving. It has sat here since before the war, since before the fire, since before the concept of time had any meaning. If you approach with reverence, it offers something rare. The path of the dragon, a covenant for those who wish to transcend their current form and become like the ancient ones. It is an invitation to shed the trappings of the Age of Fire and embrace something older, something more permanent. But the dragon speaks no words. It offers only the quiet acceptance of its own existence and the invitation to join in that eternal stillness. To sit by the stone dragon is to touch the infinite. It is to understand that the wars of gods and men are but fleeting moments in the vast sweep of time. Empires rise and fall, flames kindle and fade, but the dragon remains, the archtrees remain, the ash remains. Ash Lake is a place of absolute perspective, a place where the worries of the world above seem small and distant, a place where the ego dissolves into the grey mist, and all that remains is the gentle rhythm of existence. It is the most peaceful place in all of Lordran, a hidden sanctuary at the roots of the world. Stay here for a moment. Listen to the distant song. Feel the ash beneath you, soft and ancient. There is no danger here, only peace, only stillness. Only the quiet company of a dragon who has seen everything and judges nothing. When you are ready, we will rise. But there is no rush. The world above will wait. And speaking of waiting, we must now turn our eyes back to the first flame. For as the centuries passed, the fire began to fade. The golden age of Lordran was coming to an end. The sun grew dim, the nights grew longer, and the power of the lords began to wane. With the fading of the fire, a new affliction descended upon the world, the undead curse. It began as a mark, a ring of dark fire on the flesh known as the Dark Sign. Those who bore this mark could not die. When they fell in battle or succumbed to illness, they would simply rise again at a bonfire, drawn back to the flames. But this immortality was a curse, not a gift. With each death, each rebirth, the undead would lose a part of themselves. Their memories would fade, their sense of purpose would crumble, and eventually they would become hollows, empty shells, wandering without reason or recognition. It is a gentle horror when you think about it. Not the violence of a sudden end, but the slow erosion of self, the gradual forgetting of everything that made you who you are. The world of men began to fear the undead. They gathered them up, sending them to asylums far to the north, away from the cities and the living. The Northern Undead Asylum rises in your mind now, a cold, lonely fortress, perched on a cliff edge where the wind sighs through barred windows. The cells are damp and dim, filled with the quiet sounds of those who have lost their way. Here, the undead wait. They wait for the end of the world or for the loss of their minds. It is a place of stillness in its own way. There is no conflict here, no ambition, no struggle for power. Only the long, slow passage of time. But there is a prophecy, a legend passed down through the generations. Thou who art undead art chosen. In thine exodus from the undead asylum, maketh pilgrimage to the land of ancient lords. When thou ringeth the bell of awakening, the fate of the undead thou shalt know. And so we come to you, the chosen undead. You're not a hero in the traditional sense. You're not a mighty warrior or a powerful sorcerer. You're simply a nameless soul, awakening in a cold cell with nothing but a broken sword and a flickering hope. Your journey begins in the asylum, finding your way past the hollow guards, guided by a knight who gives his life so that you might escape. You're carried away by a giant crow, lifted into the sky and dropped into the ruins of Firelink Shrine. This is your sanctuary, a small, safe haven in a world that has forgotten safety. The firekeeper tends the bonfire, her presence a comforting warmth in the cold. The melancholy music of the shrine washes over you, a song of lost hope and quiet resilience. From here, you set out on your pilgrimage. You travel to the undead Burg, a crumbling city of stone where hollow soldiers still patrol the battlements, fighting a war that ended long ago. You descend into the depths, a labyrinth of forgotten passages. You brave the challenges of Blighttown, a place of poison and shadow clinging to the walls of a deep chasm. You ring the bells of awakening, their sound echoing across the land, stirring something ancient. You navigate the traps of Sen's fortress, a gauntlet designed to test your resolve. And finally, you are carried up to Anna, Londo, the city of the gods. It is a long journey, but think of the quiet moments along the way, the moments of rest at the bonfires, the feeling of safety as you sit by the fire, the warmth seeping into your bones, the beauty of the world even in its decay, the view of the sun setting over the ocean from the cliffs of Firelink, the silence of the dark root garden where the trees glow with a soft blue light. You are a pilgrim walking through a fading world, witnessing the end of an age. And there is a strange peace in that, a quiet acceptance of the journey wherever it may lead. And high above the clouds, far removed from the decay of Lordran, there is a legend that few remember, the legend of the nameless king. He was once the god of war, the firstborn son of Gwyn. He wielded the lightning like his father, a warrior of unmatched prowess who fought against the dragons with terrible skill. But something changed. In the midst of the war, he looked into the eyes of his enemy and saw not a beast, but a noble equal. He saw the dignity of the dragons, their ancient wisdom, their connection to the world that existed before fire. And so, he made a choice that would cost him everything. He laid down his spear, he turned away from his father's war. He sided with the dragons, forging a bond with them that would last for eons. For this, his father stripped him of his deific status. His statues in Anor Londo were torn down. His name was erased from the annals of history. He became a ghost, a king without a kingdom, a god without a name. But he did not regret his choice. He vanished from the world, taking his loyalty to the dragons with him into legend. Some say he still exists, somewhere beyond the reach of the fading fire, riding the storms with his ancient companions. The nameless king represents something important, the courage to follow one's own truth, even if it means losing everything else, the willingness to see nobility in those we're told to hate, the understanding that true honour comes not from titles or lineage, but from the integrity of one's spirit. His story is a whisper now, barely remembered, but whispers have a way of lasting longer than shouts. Let his legend settle into your mind as we approach the final chapter of our journey, and now we reach the end. We stand at the precipice of fate, looking out over the fading world. The fire is dying, the dark is rising, and in the silence between the two, we find a strange kind of peace. We have gathered the souls of the lords, we have proven our worth, and the door to the kiln of the first flame stands open before us. This is the place where it all began, the heart of the world where the fire first sprang into existence. But it is no longer the vibrant burning place it once was. It is a landscape of white ash, piled in great drifts like snow. Twisted pillars of rock rise from the ground, melted and warped by the heat of ages. The sky is a pale, washed-out grey, neither day nor night, is a place out of time. a place where the world is slowly, gently unmaking itself. And here, before the fading flame, stands Gwyn. He is no longer the radiant Lord of Sunlight who led the war against the dragons. He is no longer the king who built Anor Londo and ruled over the Age of Fire. He is the Lord of Cinder now, a hollow echo of his former self, burning eternally to keep the dark at bay. He sacrificed everything, his power, his family, his very soul, all to keep the Age of Fire alive, even as it slowly consumed him. When you face him, there is no grand speech, no villainous monologue, no explanation of his motives or his regrets. He simply rises, driven by the last shreds of his duty, and he fights. The music that plays is not a triumphant orchestral score. It is a simple, melancholy piano melody, soft notes falling like rain. It is a sad, haunting song that speaks of loss and regret, of a king who has lived too long, fighting a battle he cannot win. The fight is not a victory, it is a tragedy, a duel between two hollows at the end of the world, neither of them truly understanding why they fight, only knowing that they must. And when he falls, you're left with a choice that will define the fate of the world for eons to come. You can link the fire, offering your own soul as fuel to extend the Age of Fire. You can burn, just as Gwyn did, to keep the light alive for a little while longer, to give the world more time, even knowing that the fire will fade again, and a Notaf to make the same choice. Or you can walk away. You can let the fire fade, ushering in the Age of Dark, the Age of Man, a new era, uncertain and unknown, but belonging to humanity rather than the gods. There is no right answer, no correct choice. Both paths have their costs and their rewards. Both lead to endings that are also beginnings. But tonight, let us not worry about the choice. Let us simply realize that the choice itself is part of the cycle. The fire fades, and the dark rises. But then one day the embers will dance again. A new flame will be kindled, a new kingdom will rise, and the cycle will continue as it always has, as it always will. It is the natural order of things, the slow, steady heartbeat of the universe. There is comfort in this inevitability. There is no need to fight it, no need to fear it. It is simply the way things are. Like the tide coming in and going out, like the sun rising and setting, like the breath entering and leaving your lungs. Let go of the need to control. Let go of the need to understand. Just let yourself drift. Drift on the currents of time. Drift through the fog and the fire. Drift into the quiet dark. The world of Lordran is fading now. The golden spires of Anor Londo are dissolving into mist. The ruins of Izalith are sinking back into the earth. The catacombs are silent. The abyss is still. The painted world sleeps under its blanket of snow. Ash Lake stretches on forever, peaceful and unchanged. Everything is quiet. Everything is still. You're safe. You're warm. You're at peace. Let the darkness wrap around you like a soft blanket. Let the silence fill your mind. There are no more stories to tell tonight, no more battles to fight, no more choices to make, only rest, only sleep, deep, restful sleep. The bonfire flickers beside you, its warmth seeping into your bones. The firekeeper watches over you, silent and patient. The world fades, soft and gentle, like a dream you don't want to end. You have journeyed far tonight, through the grey mists of the Age of Ancients, through the golden halls of Anor Londo, through the fires of Izalith and the darkness of the abyss, through snow and ash and shadow, and now at last you can rest. The cycle continues, the fire fades and kindles, ages end and begin, But you're here, safe, warm, at peace. Good night, chosen undead. May your dreams be gentle and your rest be deep. Good night,